Good morning to all. So welcome to the LeMO webinar. This is June 23rd, 2020. It's 11 o'clock here in Brussels. My name is Rémi Rousseteau. I'm the CEO of CORT, the Confederation of Organizations in Road Transport Enforcement. We are a partner of the LeMO project on big data, and this is in this context that we are organizing the webinar on big data. So this webinar should have taken place in Helsinki in April, and we decided with the support of the TRA to organize it today in June. So thank you very much for registering and for coming today to the webinar. We look forward to the session today, so I hope this will be useful to you. Today we will be quite a few. I think more than 120 have registered, and I think people are still coming in. So we will do a short introduction. I think people will still be coming in. But thank you today for joining. We have people from all over Europe and even abroad, from the United States. In Europe, pretty much every country is represented today with a combination of public authorities, ministries of transport, road transport companies, transport associations, universities, research agencies, and so on. So we have quite a nice, diverse public today. So welcome to all. So LeMO, just a few words about LeMO, and then I'll go through the agenda so you know what we will do today during an hour. So LeMO is a research project. We have been supported and financed by the Horizon 2020 European Research Project, and we are 5 partners in LeMO. So you can see from the agenda a number of partners here. There is, first CORT, myself, and my colleague Giant Sangwan, who will also speak later. There is the Norwegian Western Norwegian Research Institute, with Rajendra Akara, who will talk a bit later. There is the entity Pantea Research entity based in the Netherlands. There is Bird & Bird legal company who has participated to LeMO, and there is the Goethe Research Institute based in Frankfurt. So we are 5 partners. So today, the idea of today is to show you and to explain a bit what we are doing, but to be very practical and to try to show you how we perceive in LeMO, and hopefully how you could share this perception, how we perceive big data and transport. So LeMO is trying to understand first what is big data and transport, what it is, for the purpose of building ultimately a roadmap for researchers and a roadmap for policymakers, so that through these roadmaps we would try to leverage on the power of big data and try to see today how big data can positively transform transport, how it can bring value to citizens, to companies, to authorities, and basically how the whole transport community and even beyond can use big data in transport. So for doing this, LeMO has first looked at the definition and what is big data in transport. So there was a first, let's say, theoretical phase, but then very quickly in the project, we went to analyzing, assessing a few case studies, understanding how companies, authorities, and so on were using in their own daily work big data. So one of the companies that participated to this exercise is here today was Murray Armstrong from Live Road Analytics. So this was one of the case studies. So we'll look at this one was Murray. So we looked at a few case studies to understand how big data in reality was used, so that in the third phase, so after the theoretical approach and then the case study approach, we are now in the phase of designing roadmaps, so that these roadmaps could be used by research entities, national authorities, policymakers, and so on, to try to leverage again on big data and try to see what are the priorities as to how to use for the best big data in transport. So this is a bit of the context of LeMO research project again. we are today, so in the webinar, your microphones are muted, but there is a chat. The webinar is recorded. Of course, only the panelists will be recorded and those talking. You have received the agenda. I'll go through it now, and then I'll show you where in the agenda, in the course of the presentations, there will be a number of questions that will be asked to you. So you will see that after 3 of the presentations, we will ask you a few questions and invite you to answer them live during the session. So we are now in the introduction. I will be finishing this in a few moments. Then I will pass the floor to Murray Armstrong from Live Road Analytics that I mentioned before, who will say a few words about well, his experience of using big data in his company for the purpose of road transport. So this will be a very, let's say, a practical case of the use of big data. Then I will pass the floor to Rajendra from the Western Norwegian University, who will present, let's say, our main findings as to the barriers and challenges in the use of big data in transport. So this was one of the major, let's say, research aspects of the project, was to look at what are the, well, barriers and challenges, so that in the third step that I mentioned before, through the 2 presentations here on the roadmap, so the research roadmaps and the policy roadmap, we would try to understand how to answer these barriers, how to make the best out of the power of big data. So my colleague Jain Sangwan from CORT will say a few words about where we are as to the research roadmap. And then I'll pass the floor to Tarsis from Pantea, who will also look at the roadmap, but from a policy point of view. And these 2, let's say, roadmaps are what we are trying to work on now, that we are finalizing these roadmaps. They will be finalized at the end of the summer, beginning of the autumn, and then we will publish them. So this exercise today is to keep you aware of what we are doing, try to share our views, try to have your perspectives through the questions, try to invite you also to look at what we have done through our website and different surveys. So you will be welcome and invited also to participate to a survey after the webinar. So thank you very much for joining today.